Hey guys, I'm out here at the South Carolina DNR gun range down here at the Watery Range in Eastover, South Carolina. You got some shooting going on behind me, so don't pay any attention to that. But the reason I was here today is we had the SCDNR plant management meeting today. They're talking about the aquatic vegetation on basically on Santee Cooper. There was some talk on some other lakes like Watery and so forth, but today it was really confined to the plant management in on the Santee Cooper lakes. Now this meeting went on for about an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes or so. I'm going to produce this video in its entirety for everybody to watch, so you'll see what's going on. It will be a very lengthy video, I understand that, but if you'll watch it all the way through, you're going to have some good commentators. You got some people from the public that were able to attend the actual meeting where they got up and spoke. I was one of them, and some on the WebEx. We had one guy on the WebEx, a duck hunter from the upstate, who also got to speak on this. So all I can say is y'all stay tuned, and we'll see y'all next time on Daddied Up 365. Enjoy the video.
Second meeting of the South Carolina Aquatic Plant Management Council. We are via WebEx and in person. For the paper shuffle. Notice of this meeting has been provided to all persons, organizations, and news media which have requested notifications as required by 30-4-80E of the South Carolina Code of Laws. As I said before, we are recording via WebEx as well as a couple of other devices. We also have MattWongrey, did I pronounce that correctly, I hope. He has a YouTube channel, and he is also recording this meeting to be posted later for other members of the public to view. A couple housekeeping issues for WebEx folks. Please keep your video off and mute yourself until you need to speak. In the room, I'd ask that you raise your hand to speak and wait for the mic to be given to you so the WebEx participants can hear you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out to the meeting, and I'd like to go around the room, have everybody introduce themselves. I am Julie Holling. I am the program manager for the Aquatic Plant Management Society and chair of this meeting.
I am Willie Simmons. I'm one of the assistant chiefs with the Wildlife Freshwater Fisheries.
Casey Moore, manager of biological services with Santee Cooper, and we deal with lake management for Lake Marion and Lake Moultrie.
Chad Altman, representative for DHEC here in Water.
Billy Chastain, manager of lake management and parks and recreation for Dominion Energy, South Carolina.
Jay Tenney with SCDNR.
Bill Marshall with DNR's Land Water Conservation Division, member of this council.
Matt Buckharber, SCDNR Aquatic Nuisance.
Bob Perry, Palmetto Natural Resources Management, and I chair the South Carolina Waterfowl Advisory Committee.
Good morning, I'm Emily Cope, and I'm Deputy Director of the Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries Division with DNR.
Ernie Gary, Santee Cooper, Biological Services.
Brian Lynch, Santee Cooper, Director of Environmental and Water Systems.
Alan Stack, Santee Cooper, Biological Services.
MattWongrey, a YouTube channel, Daddied Up 365.
Thank you, Matt.
On WebEx, I'll just call your name if you'll introduce yourself. Adam.
Hey, good morning. Adam Leakhart, Lab Director, South Carolina Department of Agriculture.
All right. Carl?
Good morning. Carl Bustles. I'm an environmental specialist on the lake management team at St. Cooper.
Levi?
Good morning. I'm Levi Kauska. I am the Region 4 coordinator for SC DNR. I oversee freshwater sport fish programs along the coast, including Lakes Marion and Moultrie.
Ken?
Hey, good morning. I'm Ken Tuck, the Director of Drinking Water Services for Spartanburg Water. I oversee all of the drinking water facilities and watershed lakes hydroelectric for Spartanburg Water.
Rachel?
Hey, I'm Rachel Rosenstein. I'm the watershed manager for the Southern Basin at Catawba Riverkeeper.
I think I missed Philip.
Hey guys, I'm just a concerned outdoorsman. I live in York County, South Carolina. Thanks.
Rob?
Still trying to open.
Rob, could you repeat yourself because we didn't hear anything? We'll go back to Rob. Stacy?
Good morning. I'm Stacy Sherman. I'm the resource management biologist for South Carolina State Parks.
Okay. Tammy?
Good morning. I'm Tammy Lawyon. I'm with the Department of Pesticide Regulation out of Clemson University. We're out of the Regulatory and Public Service Division. We're the regulatory agency in the state of South Carolina for all pesticide laws and programs, and I'm the Special Programs Manager for our department, and sit as a board member on this council.
Travis?
Yes, I'm from York, South Carolina. I'm a waterfowl hunter and care about the waters all around the state of South Carolina.
Okay. Could you give us your last name, Travis?
Swanda.
Could you spell that for us?
Sorry. SWANDA.
Okay, I just want to make sure we had it right for our records. And Rob, could you introduce yourself, including your last name?
This is Rob Becker. I'm with Savannah Riverside. I'm the NPDES subject matter expert.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go to the minutes of the January 10th meeting, the 141st meeting. We did have one correction that I'm aware of on page 2. When Mr. Bustles was speaking, he swapped the dates for the multispectral footage and the drone footage. The multispectral was in August, and the multispectral was in August, and the drone footage was done in November. Are there any other corrections to the minutes?
I had one clarification, Julie, you need to take the mic.
Yes, please.
I think there was one more spot where we noted hyperspectral instead of multispectral. I didn't highlight it. So, should have printed the page numbers. Page 16. Second paragraph.
Second paragraph, you said?
That's right. So in this paragraph, we were discussing the 12,000 fish that the council had brought up for discussion in here. And there was a note where I had commented about 700 fish. It's actually like 900 and some odd fish that went up from the maintenance stocking number of about 11,025 that we had recommended.
Okay.
And then there was a note where I had said that 12,000 was a round number. I wanted to clarify that that number that was recommended by other council members was not just a number pulled from, you know, a round number. That was from previous years when the council was looking at decreasing the grass carp population in the Santee Cooper Lakes. We were presented, it was before I served on the council, but my predecessor, we were presented different scenarios where if we stopped consistently 10,000 fish, 12,000 fish, 13,000 fish, 15,000 fish, how that would progressively lower the population until we came to a flat line for the population in the lake. So I just wanted to make sure that we clarify that for the record and that we make sure that we're talking through that that's where those numbers came from.
Does anybody else have any corrections to the minute?
This might just be nitpicky, but under guests on the first page, there's an L missing from my first name.
You can blame Matt for that. I don't mind that kind of nitpicky. I've done that before.
Yeah, Julie, I got the hyperspectral one too, sorry. Alright, so on page 4, third paragraph, it begins with Mr. Marshall. This, I believe, was during Carl, either Chad's presentation. There is a sentence that says maybe we could move to hyperspectral timing towards October. I just want to clarify that that is multispectral, that we no longer use hyperspectral on the survey for St. Cooper Lakes.
I don't know, I say a lot of things.
We had one additional council member come in. Chris, could you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, sorry about that. This is Chris Stout with South Carolina DHEC Office of Ocean and Coastal Resource Management.
Thank you, sir.
Not a problem.
All right, we'll go on to public comment. Mr. Perry has requested to speak. I'll let him speak first. Oh, I'm sorry about, I jumped the gun here. We need to approve those minutes.
This is Casey Bora. I make a motion to approve the minutes with the changes and clarifications that we just discussed.
Second motion.
Thank you all. Everybody in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Now we'll move on to the public comment. Mr. Perry?
Thank you, Julie. Members of the Aquatic Plant Management Council and distinguished guests, I'm Bob Perry. I'm here today to speak out against increasing the stocking of sterile grass carp into Lakes Marion and Moultrie. I retired from DNR after 39 years of service. For the last 13 years of my career with DNR, I represented the Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries Division on this Aquatic Plant Management Council. I fully understand the ecological relationship between hydrilla, reservoir systems, wintering waterfowl utilization of reservoir habitats, and the use of sterile grass carp to control hydrilla. By training, I'm a wetland scientist with 44 years of specific experience in waterfowl and wetlands management. My company is Palmetto Natural Resources, LLC. I work on waterfowl habitat management with landowners across the state. Presently, I serve by appointment by Representative Bill Hickson, Chairman of the House Ag and Natural Resources Committee, as Chairman of the South Carolina Waterfowl Advisory Committee, answering to the members of the General Assembly. In accordance with House...
Julie, did the microphone cut off? It's quiet on our end.
Sorry, it got glitchy.
I do this in accordance with House Bill 4177, passed about a year ago. The South Carolina Waterfowl Advisory Committee was established by an act of the South Carolina General Assembly on April 21, 22, signed into law by the Honorable Henry Dargan McMaster on April 25, 2022. This bill provides that the Waterfowl Advisory Committee has, among other duties, the responsibility to assist in the management of waterfowl habitats, assist in the development, protection, and propagation of waterfowl in the state. I will brief the Waterfowl Advisory Committee in its May 2023 meeting and make this statement part of the official record of that committee, and it will become part of the annual report of the committee to the General Assembly on or before December 31st, 2023. At our most recent meeting, which several of you attended, down in Georgetown, I think you're aware that the committee had prepared in advance a resolution opposing the increase of sterile grass carp stocking this year. Out of comity and respect to Casey and her team, it was a decision made by me as chair not to pull that resolution to a vote. I was chided by one of the members of the committee for doing so. But most of the people who had attended that meeting were there for other reasons, and I did not want to bring the Santee Cooper staff into that meeting at that time. However, the committee knows that I'm here today, and they were fully prepared to pass that resolution, and we will probably address that resolution at our May 2023 meeting. Probably be after you make a decision today, but we will still do that. As we know, the 2023 Aquatic Plant Management Plan calls for increased release of sterile grass carp into Lakes Marion and Moultrie based on observation of increased acreage of hydrilla. The plan does not quantify, other than in general terms, the magnitude of increased acreage of hydrilla. Hydrilla can be an important forage resource for many living, diving, and important dabbling ducks wintering on and around Lakes Marion and Moultrie. Since the actual acreage of hydrilla on Lakes Marion and Moultrie has not been published in the plan, and overstocking of sterile grass carp into Lakes Marion and Moultrie has had a detrimental impact on native aquatic vegetation, important to a variety of fish and wildlife species, and their result of public use. Lakes Marion and Moultrie are important habitats for human recreational fishing and hunting. This proposed action is not in the public interest, particularly to waterfowl enthusiasts residing across South Carolina. Let me state that, as we all know, the waterfowl resource wintering in South Carolina is not what it used to be, and it's not what we want it to be. In many respects, we could look at wintering waterfowl in South Carolina as somewhat of a dwindling resource. Yes, the 22-23 season was a good one, and it was benefited by something we cannot control, and that is very, very cold weather before and during the Christmas period. There are things we can control, and provision and restoration and enhancement and protection of quality habitat falls under the purview of things that we can control in South Carolina. I rise to oppose the stocking of 12,000 sterile grass carp this year, an increase of 20% from previous years, into the waters of Lakes Marion and Moultrie, and urge restraint on this issue, and recommend that no more than 5,000 sterile grass carp be released into these lakes during 2023, as it is not warranted by the data on the extent of hydrilla coverage in these water bodies. I further recommend as strongly as possible that beginning next year, Council conduct this meeting in a more transparent manner through the encouragement of better public participation. You can do this easily by conducting this annual meeting in a centralized meeting place, which we have today, However, during an evening, so that waterfowl hunters who have jobs may be able to attend in person. I recognize that this is a hybrid meeting, but please appreciate that working people cannot easily participate virtually. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Sorry for the mic issues. Mr. Lynch, you said you wish to speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, first I'd like to start out with just saying I fully agree with Bob Perry. Overstocking of grass carp is a detriment to our system. It's something we need to avoid at all costs. In the past, we have had overstocking. We've had motions made by Mr. Perry himself about stocking over 100,000 grass carp in our system, which is a detriment to our system. It took years and years to recover from that action. Today, the council approves or looks to approve a more balanced, more conservative approach to grass carp stocking. So we've recommended Santee Cooper a little over 11,000 fish, which is in line with replacing mortality. That is keeping the same number of fish that we have in the system, not increasing, not decreasing, but maintaining the same number of fish. So in spite of the increase of hydrilla that we've seen, we want to maintain that same number so that we don't have a knee-jerk reaction and we can continue to see what the environment is going to react to this stocking. So that's a conservative approach to stocking that is highly desirable and is not a detriment to our system. The detriment is stop stocking and then overstocking, and that has caused an annihilation of native vegetation in our system. We've seen a resurgence of native vegetation in our system, which is very beneficial to waterfowlers and all other fisheries and things like that. So we want to continue the conservative approach that we have today, and we appreciate the council's recommendation. Second, Santee Cooper as a whole has a federal mandate to control invasive species that no council can alleviate of that responsibility. But this council very much empowers the tools that we can use to achieve that mandate. Santee Cooper desires a balanced approach to meet the needs of all stakeholders to the best of their ability, and with that, this council gives us the appropriate tools to do that in an economical fashion and in a balanced fashion to meet all those needs. So we appreciate your support, we appreciate everything you have done, and appreciate the balanced approach that you have taken that is based on data. There is no data to stock anything other than the 11,000 that Santee Cooper has recommended. And then there is some other, factors with why we ended up at 12, but there is, we think we need to make data-driven decisions and let the science drive the decisions of the council. So we fully support what you do. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak in the room?
May I have an opportunity?
Yes, sir. You may.
Oh, my camera's all goofing up. The front be okay? Or?
Wherever you wish to speak, Matt.
Thank you. Hello, my name is MattWongrey. I'm a waterfowler, pure and simple. I've had over 50 years of duck hunting here in South Carolina. It's not my first time in front of a meeting. It is my first time in front of here, and I want to thank you for letting me come here, and also thank you for letting me bring my camera for my YouTube channel. In the 50 years that I've been duck hunting, I have seen the waterfowl numbers drop dramatically. And I'm just talking waterfowl here, especially in the Santee Cooper area, especially in the swamp. When I started duck hunting at 7 years old, there was plenty of vegetation in the swamp. Lots of vegetation. There were ducks everywhere. We did not even shoot wood ducks. Some of you older in here, some of the older behind me on the WebEx may call them summer ducks. We didn't even shoot those ducks. Reason? We had mallards. When hydrilla started coming on the lakes, we saw a decrease of mallards, and that could come to a lot of things, weather, food sources, weather, the breeding areas not producing correctly. But we had other ducks. We had canvasbacks, lots of them. Shot my first canvasback on Santee. Shot redheads, shot bluebills. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how many ringnecks I've shot. DNR may come after me after that one. But we had a lot of ducks. I did not even hunt South Carolina this year except for 3 days. One day to take a youth out, and 2 days, and I will say I whiffed on a pair of mallards, but that was it. Didn't even see the ducks. Now I have worked with some of you in here. Ms. Casey, we have gone after GS pretty hard. I commend y'all, your team, for that. I took her to some places, my favorite hole, where 2 years prior, we were shooting limits, 5-man limits of ducks out of it. 2 years later, it's full of GS. I've been with this team when we planted what I like to call duck candy. The name, the actual technical name is kind of went through my head. I can't think of it. But I went with them to help plant this stuff. I am all about conservation, and we do have to come up with a simple balance. Ducks need 3 things. They need food, they need water, they need rest. Period. No ifs, ands, buts about it. Weather does not come into a play except for the duck hunter. I know that's hard for some people to think about, but that's the only time weather, and we can't control the weather. But we can control, as Mr. Perry eloquently said, we can control the water, we can control food, and we can control rest. The last thing I want to say is on the backs of Mr. Perry is, I am a duck hunter. I work a full-time job. I work 5-6 days a week. I had to take a day off to come here. It is middle of the week, Wednesday, 10 a.m. midday. But I made an effort to come here. Now, I've lost my money for the day, but that's okay because I'm here. So I would really greatly appreciate if we could consider Mr. Perry's proposal in putting this at a later time of the day or a weekend where we can get more duck hunters. I'm the only one here in the public, that Mr. Perry, that I know of, and I think we have 2 on WebEx. That's it, because people are working. People are working, and they want to be here. I posted this as a PSA on my YouTube channel, and I had quite a few comments. Please, Matt, if you can, be there and video it in its entirety so we can watch it at a later date, because we cannot be there. Anyway, I want to thank this council again for a lot of your hard work. Continue what you're doing. Mr. Perry, again, sir, you're number 1 in my book. Always have been. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Is there anybody on WebEx that wishes to speak? Alright, I will move on.
Julie, Davis, what organization sponsors?
Alright, the chat, Bob, I'm sorry, remind me of your organization.
Palmetto Natural Resources Management, LLC, is my company.
Palmetto Natural Resources, LLC is the company that Mr. Perry is head of, and he is also the chair of the
South Carolina Waterfowl Advisory Committee.
South Carolina Waterfowl Advisory Committee that was put into place by legislation. And you can find information about that committee on DNR's website. Any other questions or comments from WebEx folks? Alright, let's move on to the public comments. on the plan. Alright, we had, the council has all this information and it will be posted with the plan. 7 positive comments, 1 negative, and 6 that were relatively neutral. They didn't say one way or the other regarding the plan. Most of them were comments about vegetation that they saw an issue with where they live or recreate. And several comments from people around Santee Cooper Lakes, a letter from Santee Cooper Country. We also had comments regarding issues in Watery Lakes, Greenwood Lake, including the Watery from Randy Kelly, who is chair of Water Watch of Lake Watery Association, and the Catawba River Keeper regarding Watery. Lake Watery, that is. And the negative comment was from Representative Philip Lowe. Just a comment about taking the side of ruining aquatic vegetation at the expense of wildlife. In response to that, just keeping all up with pages here. Deal with the responses of Lake Watery and Lake Greenwood. Lake Watery, we know, has an issue with algae, and we know that Lake Greenwood has some issues with Vallisneria. Both of those are, Lake Watery is under the control of Duke Energy, and they are responsible for vegetation control. We assist them as they request. We know that algae is an issue, but I believe that DHEC and Duke have not been able to locate a source for that system. I know that there are a few tests that are being run to see if there is an alternative way to help control that algae. In Lake Greenwood, that is under the control of the Greenwood County Lake Management Department, and we also assist them as needed, as they request. We do grass carp stockings in that lake because there has been an issue with hydrilla. But for Greenwood, we recommend, and Greenwood County Lake Management treats areas where it is causing issues with navigation and access, while allowing that to grow in areas that have not been developed. One of the comments was in regard to Lake Wooltree canals being clogged up. That was forwarded to Santee Cooper staff. Georgetown County Phragmites. A lot of the property boundaries in that area go to the river. Therefore, it is considered public by private property by law. The laws that created the program, the money that we receive from Water Rec may only be used to treat public waters. Unfortunately, that means that the frag that is in the marshes but still within private property is something that we cannot treat. In regard to grass carp on Santee Cooper Lakes, I included some information from our assistant hatchery coordinator regarding grass carp testing. All of the distributors that are going to bring sterile grass carp in are required to pre-test 100% of their shipment, but for sterility using a culture counter. Once they arrive, then they also have to have permits from DNR to transport in. DNR pulls a random 5% sample up to a maximum of 120 fish to retest to verify that sterility testing. If they choose to, they can test the whole shipment. If there is a single decoy fish, that shipment fails. And those have to be escorted back to the state line or euthanized on site. They have tested a total of, at the time that she wrote this, 1,132 shipments, 9 have failed. That is less than 1% failure rate. So we are pretty sure that those fish are true triploid sterile fish. Primary objective of Santee Cooper's management program is to foster diverse native aquatic plants while controlling invasive and nuisance aquatics throughout the lakes, and they consider all of the user groups. They use an integrated pest management using continuing education, cooperative research, professional training to manage those species in the most effective way with the least possible hazard to people, property, and the environment. They do annual boat surveys, drone surveys, and that multispectral imaging by satellite to monitor the populations. Right now, since they began the satellite imagery in 2019, they are not including any of the acreage that they see using boat and drone surveys, but they have seen, that is to provide consistent data. Lake users report information regarding nuisance and invasive species to the lake managers so that they can identify problematic species and prioritize treatment areas and select best management tools. Grass carp is one of the biological tools being used to target hydrilla. As said previously by a couple people, we don't want to have too many carp in the system. We want enough in there to control the hydrilla so that it can't grow rapidly and outcompete native vegetation. Those larger stockings are a detriment to the system. We don't want to repeat what has been done in the past of doing large stockings of fish that are difficult to remove from the system. If we can keep at a minimum a true maintenance stocking protocol on an annual basis, we hope that that will help us keep a balance of hydrilla versus and have an abundance of the native vegetation, which we have seen over the last couple of years. What was put in the draft was 12,000 fish. That is slightly above mortality rate. That can still be adjusted. But we made that recommendation because of the increase in what was seen by satellite survey, the clear water, and the visual commentary of what the Santee Cooper staff was seeing on the system, which is very difficult to quantify without additional funding and staff to do that kind of intense survey. Over the last 6 years, the 10,000 carp per year was to ensure that we were slowly lowering the population, the total population, having a diverse age structure, which takes advantage of the high feeding rate of the younger fish, and also allow us to make smaller adjustments to that stocking rate based on what we were seeing on the system. Current carp population, based on our estimates, is 1 carp per 4.6 surface acres. And that system, both those lakes, is 160,000 acres of water. I think most of us believe that having the current number of carp or slightly higher will help control the hydrilla without harming native vegetation and reduce that need for larger stockings, which are a detriment to the system. Does anybody else wish to comment regarding, any of the council members wish to comment regarding the comments that came in from the public?
I will, Julie.
Okay. Would you please?
So from the written comments that we have in, I did want to ask a little bit more about Lake Watery and Duke's responsibility in that program. If their FERC license mandates a type, any kind of invasive or nuisance program, is it reasonable that we pull in someone from that management team and have a discussion with them? I know you mentioned that DHEC and Duke were working on something for the Langia on Lake Watery.
I don't know what their FERC license states. My understanding from all of the FERC licenses is that they have there is something in that plan that they control invasive vegetation, but I do not know that for certain.
And that might be something that I can follow up with Brett or those folks that I do know and have some contacts with. And then in regards to some of the Sandy Cooper comments that we got, obviously Representative Lowe was one. It was vague, but we assumed that it was directed towards the Sandy Cooper lake system. And then to address some of the things that Bob brought up earlier when he spoke. And I will say, Bob, just like Brian, that I do agree with you that the overuse of carp is a detriment to our system. Absolutely. It's been done in the past multiple times, voted in by this council, and I'm not placing blame there. I believe that council members made the best decision with the data and the information and tools that they had at that time. The council has changed. Sandy Cooper leadership has changed. Our lake management team has changed, and our goals have changed. I wish that we had more of an opportunity to educate folks about the changes that have been made, and that is one of the reasons that I came to, or our team came to, the South Carolina Waterfowl Advisory Committee. We were not invited by any council member or committee member to come. I wish we had been, just so that we could express the changes and what we are seeing. I agree that in the draft plan, it wasn't specified the exact percentage of hydrilla increase. So for someone who was just reading that plan, it came across as it was just an opinion of our staff, and it's absolutely not. At the previous council meeting that was held here and available for any member of the public to call into via WebEx or reach out to me or anyone from our staff, we shared that multispectral imagery indicated a 48% increase in hydrilla. The reason that we have shifted from the days when you represented DNR on this council is that hyperspectral, one, we had issues, gaps in data with hurricane events, high water events where turbidity blocked or prevented us from getting an accurate survey. And then those surveys were also supplemented with boat survey work. That opens us up to subjectivity, right? The way I survey and the next person surveys can be different. And in an effort to be consistent, because as a council we decided to slowly reduce that grass carp population, we wanted some consistency even in our reporting. So while the acres of hydrilla may seem lower than they were in the past, it's purely a result of the methodology that we are using to collect and how we are reporting now. What the best that we can do, in my opinion and our team's opinion, is allow a third party to collect this data for us, analyze it, and then we make decisions based off that. Now, we're still doing boat surveys, ground truthing, and collecting drone footage, but we're not quantifying that acreage and adding it to what we present to the council. And the reason behind that is there's that consistency that we want. Is multispectral perfect? Absolutely not. When you get into a mixed stand of vegetation, you're gonna pick up the predominant species. So you're dropped down to 3 to 4 bands instead of 5 to 6 bands with hyperspectral. The things that we gain from going to satellite is that environmental impact. So if we have a hurricane, we can try to pick up, satellite passed 2 weeks prior to that, and we can pick up that data before the system became turbid. That was our reason behind doing that. I still stand behind that decision. Maybe it hasn't been communicated well. I think at this council and these meetings we've communicated it well, but it hasn't been as accessible to the public. A couple of things that we talked through or that I heard at the Waterfowl Advisory Committee wasn't necessarily representative of what we're doing at Santee Cooper now. And I find that very unfortunate because we are accessible to people. We've offered tours. I don't know when the last time you've been on the Santee Cooper Lakes or hunted on the Santee Cooper Lakes in areas that you would see vegetation or expect to see vegetation. There is absolutely more vegetation on our systems than there has been in the past 6 years. That has been our input from fishermen. That has been our input from waterfowl groups. It is what our team has seen in the field. Now that's native vegetation and hyperspectral or multispectral survey work, that we're getting that information from. So a couple of the points in there that I've heard, it's just I don't want to see misinformation. So what I'm asking our stakeholders that we're looking at, we have drinking water intakes, we have commercial leases where people make their livelihood on our system. Yes, we do have hydro stations on there, but I can promise you a lot of folks believe that that's all those reservoirs were for. I'm not saying at a time that it wasn't. That is not Santee Cooper's opinion now. Our opinion now is to find a balance and making sure that each of our lake user groups' voices are heard and that we're managing in a way that we can balance those needs. Waterfowl and fishery habitat has been at the forefront of our management objectives in the last 5 to 6 years. We're doing habitat enhancement. We've reduced the grass carp number. When we were only asked to go 10,000 a year for 5 years, we extended that to 6 because what we were seeing on the system. We were, really excited and pleased with the amount of native vegetation. While we did have hydrilla coming back on the system, it wasn't alarming to us at that point, so it wasn't a reason for us to make a reactive decision. As far as waterfowl, Mr. Matt spoke about pressure and these things, and just what he said, waterfowl was on the system prior to hydrilla. It was just different, it was mallards. And then when we switched over to predominantly 40,000 acres of hydrilla, the species changed. And then we can go on and talk about the total annihilation and the 750,000 grass carp that were stocked. We recovered. There was a decision to stock over 200,000 fish in 2 years that we just repeated history. Where we're at right now is trying to find that balance and keep a level of carp in the system that keeps pressure on our hydrilla but doesn't damage our native species. Where we're at is not a total annihilation of hydrilla. That's not what this team's goal is. Our goal is to keep a mix of good submerged vegetation in there, balance our lake user needs. And now we have giant salvinia on our plate. So a lot of our resources do go to that. I was passed on a letter that had some information that had been shared on a public forum that had a lot of statements that just weren't untrue. And so what I would encourage any member of the public, and Bob, don't feel like I am speaking directly to you because this is what when you were talking to me, you were looking at me, and this is how the Waterfowl Advisory Committee went as well. Please reach out to our team. Let us share with you what we're doing. And I know it's human nature to default to what's been done in the past, but folks have to give us an opportunity to prove ourselves. And I do feel like we've been very conservative where we're at. And our recommendation was to replace mortality. While that was a % increase of the original stocking number of 10,000, it is not an increase of population of fish. It holds our population where we are at a fairly low number. 48% increase of hydrilla picked up on multispectral. While we know there's more out there, we didn't report that to the council because we can't quantify that. And we don't want it to be biased. You know, that's where we're at, is trying to be conservative and consistent in what we do. You know, it's been a tough road where we've been trying to build relationships, people like Matt, other waterfowl groups, special interest group, fisheries group, BAS Elite Series, trying to build those relationships and educate the public on what our goals on, and really hearing their voices and taking that to heart and trying to make a difference is where we are. And I hope that folks will eventually give us the chance to prove that. So I think that's all I have to say in regards to the public comments that we received. And Matt, I appreciate what you've done with us as well, identifying some of those areas in Salvinia that we've been working on as well. Everyone at this table should definitely, and members of the public should be very concerned about Salvinia on the system and how that pulls our resources from other species. You know, our time and efforts and money needs to go to Salvinia management, and that directly impacts Sandy Cooper ratepayers.
Madam Chair, may I speak to address Casey just a second?
Yes, Bob, you may.
Casey, I'd like for you to know
Hang on, Bob. Hold on. Yeah, get you. It's on.
Casey, I'd like for you to know that the Waterfowl Advisory Committee has established a standard quarterly meeting schedule. Our next meeting will be the first Tuesday in May. It will be at Santee Coastal Reserve. That's the proposed meeting site. I think you probably know where that is. Mm-hmm. And you have a standing invitation from this point forward to attend any one of those meetings, and we would like to put you on the agenda.
Sure.
For a brief or lengthy presentation. It'll be your choice.
Right. I appreciate that, Bob. I do. That's a stakeholder group of ours that needs a voice, and we've been trying to find the way to really tap into that lake user group.
All right, thank you. On to the draft aquatic management plan. Does anybody wish to make any changes to that plan?
I do, Julie. So being that what we just talked through on this and trying to avoid a reactive management like has been done in the past, and I will say I don't believe that the 12,000 fish that this council discussed was reactive. It was a 900 fish difference across a 160 to 170,000 acre reservoir. In an effort to maintain and build more trust with our stakeholders, I would suggest, Sandy Cooper would like to suggest that we default back to the original recommendation of replacing mortality, which would be 11,025 fish. Essentially, that will hold our population as where it was last year in 2022. Although we saw that 48% increase in hydrilla, if you're familiar with the Sandy Cooper Lake system, you know that it is a flowing system heavily impacted by environmental conditions and events. I don't want us to have a hurricane event, a flood event where we have high turbidity and high water and we lose our submerged aquatic vegetation, specifically native vegetation. It will also impact invasive submerged vegetation as well if we have high turbidity, high water events. There is some caution to this council that we very well may have a clear year and we may see another increase. I would feel like we need to stabilize the system, hold our population at where it was in 2022, and see how the system responds to a maintenance stocking. And a true maintenance stocking. And I think there is some confusion or misunderstanding of what a true maintenance stocking is. A true maintenance stocking is replacement of mortality. It's not picking a number and saying 10,000 every year, or 12,000 every year, or 15,000. It is replacing the mortality and holding that population where it is. So that is Sandy Cooper's recommendation. I'm open to hearing any, concerns or comments with that. I do think we need to keep a very close eye on hydrilla, which we will do. We're still spot treating in areas of concern that are blocking access. Only in areas that are blocking access is where we're treating. So that would be what I would like to see changed in the plan before it gets approved today. As far as the Sandy Cooper system, dropping back from that 12,000 fish to 11,025. I will make that motion with all those words. I'm sorry, Matt. I just wanted to give some reason of why I was making that motion.
Okay, I just want to go on record and say that DNR supports the second set motion, backing down to the maintenance level, but we're also concerned about everything continue to be watched, and we want balance for both duck hunters, fishermen, and all the users that are on the system. You made mention of true replacement of mortality, and I want to bring to the council's remembrance that fisheries told us as well, as these fish get older, they don't eat as much. So you got mortality added in there, plus the older fish that are in there that are not going to eat as much vegetation as well. And if we need to get confirmation from that from fisheries, I'm sure we can do that. But not as long as that, but just a little bit.
Alright, thanks to both of y'all. Is there any discussion regarding that motion?
Julie, this is Tammy Lyon. Just a brief comment regarding the motion. I certainly will support Casey and Sandy Cooper's decision to lower that number. I also want us to keep in mind that we are, just like we said, replacing the mortality, which I think the whole council is in agreement with that. But we also have had a very, very mild winter. From a standpoint of growth and what we may see coming up, we need to be very careful, and we need to keep our eyes really peeled on what we're going to be seeing as far as invasives that are coming in, and as far as control. Because I think, this is an older population of fish, so therefore we're going to have a decrease in the amount of consumption, which may throw off what we're thinking as far as control, and may actually get behind the 8 ball. So we just really need to keep our eyes focused on this. We have seen from a regulatory standpoint that we've got a lot more invasives coming into our state. They come into our water bodies. So we really want to keep our eyes focused that we don't lose control of what we already have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Anybody else on WebEx wish to make any comments?
I would just mention or bring up what Willie just referenced from the last meeting and from previous meetings that, we try our best to get a handle on feeding rates and, mortality rates and updated numbers every year as we collect these fish. But the most consistent data that we see of all the things we look at is that these older fish, 10 plus years old, but especially once they reach their mid-teens and upper ages, that they're consistently in much more poor condition. So as Willie mentioned, although those fish are in the system, we do not suspect that those fish are contributing much at all to vegetation control. And so going back to the idea of maintenance stocking, if we're keeping the same amount of fish in there, but we consistently have a group of fish that are, for lack of a better phrase, aging out of the control population, that size of the population that is actually contributing to vegetation control, I think there should be a bit less concern from that standpoint as far as the destruction of vegetation from these carp, at least at that age. And so that's something that I just wanted to reiterate that Willie had touched on.
Thank you, Levi. Any other comments from WebEx staff people? Anybody, any additional comments from the room?
In the plan, the draft plan, we still have that, fall, like if something comes up this fall, that we can revisit what we've been doing, is that correct? I think that verbiage was in there.
Casey,
We can
was that-
schedule another meeting
Yeah.
and discuss what we're seeing and a plan going forward, if we need to.
Okay, Casey was, for the WebEx folks, in case you didn't hear her, she was asking if there is the possibility, if we see an issue with an increase in hydrilla, that we could have an additional meeting to add more carp to the system if needed.
Or to just discuss it.
Or at least discuss it. And that is the case. At any point, if there is an issue on any of the water bodies listed in the plan, there is the council may discuss those issues and make decisions to adjust things if needed. Philip, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I do. I just wanted to add to Matt's earlier comment about waterfowls and the waterfowlers' concern for resources in the state. I am very passionate about duck hunting. I travel all over the country, and I live in South Carolina. And just like Matt, I think I hunted 3 times in my state, and that's just due to the lack of resources on the water, on public water. And it's just, it's sad to see, because I have youth that I take and try to bring to the sport, and there's just lots of opportunity there, and then there's also a loss of revenue for the state. So I just wanted to reiterate Matt's earlier comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. All right, is there any additional discussion regarding the motion to change the number of grass carp put into the Santee Cooper systems from 12,000 to 11,025? All right, I'll call that to a vote. I'll do a roll call vote. I'll start with WebEx. Chris? What is your vote?
I'll abstain.
You abstain. Adam?
Aye.
Tammy?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Chad? Aye. Bill? Sorry, I skipped you.
Just to clarify, we were voting on a segment or the entire plan with?
The number of carp in the Santee Cooper system.
I support that.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Casey?
Aye.
Willie?
Aye.
And I will abstain. I'm abstaining unless there is a need for me to break a tie in the future. All right, for the draft plan overall, final approval, is there anybody are there any additional changes that need to be made to the plan? Okay. So could I get a motion from someone to pass the plan with the change to the number of grass carp in the Santee Cooper system?
I make a motion to accept the plan with the change of reducing the number to 11,025 as far as the number of carp stock in the Santee Cooper system.
Thank you, Willie. Is there a second?
Julie, I second that motion.
Thank you, Tammy. Chad also tried that. He was just raising his hand though. Okay.
Sorry, Chad.
As long as it's seconded, it's okay with me. All right. Is there any additional discussion regarding that motion to accept the plan as amended? All right. There being none, I'll do an additional roll call vote. Chris?
I'm going to abstain.
Adam?
Aye.
Tammy?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Casey?
Aye.
Willie?
Aye.
And I will abstain again. Alright, so that passes. I am going to give the meeting over to Stacy to tell us about the new state parks that we hope to add to next year's plan.
Good morning, everyone. So in the last year, State Parks has acquired several new properties, 2 of which have ponds and are relevant to the work that we do on this council. One is Ramsey Grove. It's about 3,800 acre acquisition along the Black River in Georgetown. It has a approximately 10 acre pond that we plan to use for bank fishing and some canoeing and kayaking. We do not plan to use it for swimming. This property is not yet fully open to the public, although we're working really hard to get it open as soon as possible. It does have a water control structure that is leaking, and we know about it. Water level in the pond is low currently. It is on the long to-do list to fix for things for that property, so we hope to get that sorted out soon. The second relevant property is Misty Lake. This is a 192 acre acquisition located between North Augusta and Aiken. It has an approximately 7 acre pond that we plan to use for fishing from the bank and the pier. Maybe some canoeing and kayaking, but that might be down the line, and no swimming for this pond. Again, this property is new. It is not fully open to the public yet, although we're hoping and moving towards getting it fully open soon. DNR has visited both of these sites, and either property, though not currently in the plan, either property may need aquatic plant treatments in the summer of 2023. And ultimately added to the plan, though, we just approved the plan for this year, so this would be added to next year's plan. And I think Julie may have some more information about these ponds.
Alright, say thank you, Stacy. We did survey both of those ponds, and both have some vegetation issues. Nothing that is, Ramsey Grove does have some primrose that is invasive. Most of the vegetation that is on both of those is native, but some of it would need to be controlled for bank fishing purposes. But basically, we wanted you to be aware of those properties and potentially approve the treatment of those as needed this year.
Does anybody have any questions about either of these properties?
I do, if I may.
Alright, Matt in the audience had a question.
Thank you. My simple question is on Ramsey Grove. I understand how the state acquired it. Grateful that we did. One of the issues that I have is why not Ramsey Grove, instead of a state park, be put in as a wildlife management area Category 1, I know that it's a small area, but it can be utilized for youth hunts, and youth hunts only. That is the only question that I have. I am not familiar with the other property at all, but I am familiar with Ramsey Grove, and if possible, I'd like the state to reconsider, turn it into a Cat 1 youth hunt only. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and I believe Emily can make a response to that.
Yeah, and Stacy, if you want to take the lead on it, you're welcome to, but I'm happy to update the committee and everyone about where we are on that.
I think the response to that is well above my pay grade. So
I got it. So I will say DNR has been working very closely with PRT and the governor's office. This plan came out of the governor's office, and so both PRT and DNR are trying to honor the governor's vision for Ramsey Grove. And it has been agreed to that DNR will run waterfowl hunts on the impoundment at Ramsey Grove. They will be specialized hunts. Again, this is a roost shooting impoundment. It is not what people normally expect from our Category 1 impoundments. So to run it as a normal public Category 1 hunt is not, it doesn't meet the expectations of the public. It's very small. But we will be focusing on specialty youth hunts on that. It'll probably be through our Tobo program or other youth outreach programs, but that is the plan, is the impoundment at Ramsey Grove will be very focused on trying to do some youth and some specialty type hunts.
Thank you, ma'am.
Julie, I have one question or clarification. Stacy, you mentioned that those areas would need treatment in summer of 2023, or did you mean 2024?
I mean this summer.
Okay,
This
so this
summer's
summer,
more likely.
but they'll be added
Yeah.
to the 2024 plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, Stacy, would you like to make a request regarding treatments?
Absolutely. I would like to make a motion to allow any treatment required for either of these parks this summer, and to formally add both parks to the plan next year.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
That will second. Is there any additional discussion regarding these two park locations? Nothing? Okay. Do another roll call vote. Chris?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
Tammy?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Willie?
Aye.
I'm abstaining as well. Alright, topics and dates for the 2023-24 council meetings. I expect that we will have another meeting October to mid-November. I'll put out a poll regarding those dates, in regard to the timing.
I'll try to honor Mr. Perry's request of change and Mr. Matt's request of changing the time, if possible.
Willie's asked about changing the time and to allow more public access. Does anybody have an issue with that on the council?
I don't have an issue with that. I do know that, I mean, we have public comments available where people can email or send in. I mean, the Waterfowl Advisory Committee was held during the day, and it was well attended, but it's likely because of the area it was held, and a lot of those folks work right there, and they're able, probably have more flexible flexibility in their careers. So I'm fine with moving it, or can we have like a session where public, we might have an hour session in an evening and let the public come and speak in person if we can't move the actual meeting time or place. That would be I guess a secondary option for us. Like to hold information sessions and receive public input.
Yeah, having either moving the meeting later or having some public input sessions
And
later.
really that's about time too, that might give people more time to share their thoughts if it's done in the evening than trying to pack it into a meeting and public comment period.
All right, do we have any additional comments regarding moving the meeting time either later or having additional public comment sessions in the evenings?
I'd just like to say thank y'all for the opportunity to be here and for making that accessible. So I appreciate that.
Microphone, Bill Marshall. I would just agree with the idea of not necessarily having a council meeting per se, but having a public meeting where people could come and talk about these things and interact with the biologists and the other folks who know the system that's of debate, and have that exchange that is desired. So that might be a better way to have a separate public meeting where you talk about the issues of concern and interest. And the council meeting could be done anytime, but we could do it just late in the afternoon.
I was kind of leaning toward the late afternoon, but I will put some options out there for when we can have meetings, and then that if we could have a meeting in late afternoon that could bleed kind of into the evening after most people's work day, that might be an option as well. Things that I intend to try to have included are information about waterfowl numbers, harvest, and surveys, game fish harvest and surveys, our usual grass carp health studies for Santee Cooper, as well as some water quality information potentially from Santee Cooper as we did this year. Other thing that I wanted y'all to be aware of is I'm going to change the minutes from the almost verbatim, which is very time consuming to do, to more of an overview of what is discussed. It will still be relatively complete in what is included in the minutes, but we need to reduce that a little bit because it's taking a very large chunk of time to do those minutes. We will continue to have video or audio files available for anybody that wishes to listen to, view the meeting in its entirety. Does anybody have any new business for the council? Nothing in the room. Anybody online have any new business? All right, there being none, may I have a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Casey makes a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Willie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank y'all very much for attending.